Good morning, Branches. How we doing today? Yeah, thank you so much for being here. You guys are awesome. We're gonna get into the service here. We're gonna play a couple songs. If you guys want to stand and sing with us, let's do it. Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Sing it out. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you gave yourself away. To the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you gave yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Snow wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Sing it out if you believe it. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. deserve it. Still you gave yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Are grateful for God's great love for us. God, you're so good, and we thank you and we praise you. God, because of your great love, will we just turn that back to praise? Help us to recognize that it's only by your goodness and your grace that we have life, and that you invite us into a better life, Lord. Help us to walk in the truth of that, God. We thank you, Jesus. As we sing this song, guys, would you just be aware that if you believe in Jesus, that it's by his grace that we even have breath in our lungs, that we even have life. Let's sing this song together. You give life, you are love. You bring light to the darkness. You give hope. You restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. You give life. You are love. Bring light to the darkness. You give hope. You restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. Sing it, it's your breath. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, our love. Bring light to the darkness. You give hope. You restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. Sing it, it's your breath. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you only. In your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. We pour out our praise to you only. shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. The great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. The great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. Pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you, holy. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. Pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you, Lord. Great are you, Lord. You're worthy to be. Great are you, Lord. Great are you, Lord. Great are you, Lord. God, we thank you for your gift of grace in our lives. God, you are so good to us. We thank you. In your name, amen.
All right, you guys can be. My name is Mike, and I'm one of the staff here at Branches, the guy on stage at the moment, as it said. And just welcome you in this place. I've seen a lot of new faces, so just kind of want to orient you to kind of what goes on here at Branches, because we're building a church we can bring our friends to, and by church we mean a community of people who are meeting together to kind of celebrate one thing, and we're celebrating that Jesus died on a cross and rose again. That's the celebration part, to allow us to be able to live fully, to live with joy, to live with inexplicable peace. And so we've invited you into this space, and if you're here today and you don't consider yourself a part of Branches, sorry, you're a friend now and you're part of the family, so we're so glad you're here. For those of you who are new and you're not familiar with what's going on, the cafe over here is open the entire time. So if at any point during the service you want to get a refreshment, you want to get some more sugar, or maybe other types of sugar, we got some things over there, and bananas. Yeah. You want the donuts. We want the donut, right? Like, no, it's good. Erin, my wife's at home. Hi, honey. I ate a banana at some point in this year. So here we are. We're starting off today, and we've got about 40 or so minutes left in the service. And I have a few announcements to go over with you, just things that are coming up. We just finished, just a couple days ago, the furnace. So those of you in this room who were there, you know it was an amazing time. And yeah, no, that's all right. We can clap for that. It was pretty great. But if you missed it, that can be a little bit like, shoot, I missed my only opportunity to do community that's not on a Sunday, right? I mean, we're all thinking that. Yeah? No? Okay, good. We're not thinking that. This coming Friday, it's not specifically a Branches sponsored event, but Timmy and Brianna run something called the New Month Party. And that happens every first Friday of the month. So they do it at Cathedral. It's free food. You head on out there. They do worship. And that's another environment where we are able to partake in communion together. And so that's something that just off of a Sunday, because there's no way we can do everything in community, everything we need to do just to stay healthy spiritually, stay healthy in community together in 1 hour on a Sunday. So let's find as many opportunities to do that. And this is just another one that we're making available to you. So this coming Friday, you can RSVP. If you go to our website, branches.tv/events, we'll have a link to how you can RSVP for that. But otherwise, it's at Cathedral. And again, free food, music, all that good stuff. We look forward to having you guys there. It'll be great. something else that helps build community, and it's a thing that I really enjoy. Maybe not everybody, but it's serving, right? So serving is just an amazing opportunity, amazing way for us to get to know other people, amazing way for us to get kind of in a community, doing the same thing, moving in the same direction, just having fun, honestly. And so we're doing a church work party, which we've never really advertised something like that before, but we have a building. Did you guys know that? Yeah, Xander knows. You guys, you're sitting in that building. Maybe that's confusing. So the building that we're in is a resource that we have, and we want to be good stewards with that resource. And so sometimes it takes upkeep, sometimes it takes us just throwing out stuff that we've accumulated over time, and we're inviting you into that space to help with that. We may have some painting, we've got some stuff that you could take home probably because we don't need it. So there's just all sorts of opportunity. Head to branches.tv/events to sign up for that, and just let us know you're coming so that we know if we're going to have that party. So again, so work party, that means fun. We're going to have fun with it, I promise. It's not just work. Promise. It's good. It's good. Also, next Sunday, after second service, we're starting up again with the rhythm every month that we have where we're doing slunch. I mean, second service lunch. I know I'm not supposed to say that anymore. So lunch, second service, second Sunday, lunch every month, and that's coming up next Sunday. And who doesn't like Hawaiian food? Don't raise your hand because you're wrong. Nope. Shannon, I just told you, don't, no. Hawaiian food next Sunday, so definitely bring a friend. Definitely stay after church. No RSVP needed. It's free. Bring your friends. If you happen to show up for first service that week, then go home, change your laundry, come back for lunch. It's going to be a great time. We definitely look forward to having you here. Now, there's other things we want to celebrate at Branches, right? Because we're doing a lot of things. There's a lot of activities. And as I mentioned, we had the furnace just a couple days ago, and that had over 60 people there. Eating a lot of soup and bread and salad and singing amazing songs and just having an amazing time of worship and prayer. And we took communion. It was so much fun. And so if you were there, can you just shout for joy that you were there, that you had a fun time? Yeah, that's awesome. If you weren't one of those people who shouted for joy, we were shouting for encouragement for you to come to the next one, which is going to be in December. It'll be on the 5th Friday, so in between Christmas and New Year's, we'll have another furnace event right here at 6 p.m. on that Friday. So mark your calendars. We'll talk about it closer to that date. Also, last weekend, right after that second service, we had the family time. Now, those of you who have families, you got kids out in the kids department who's killing it right now. It's amazing. They're just, man, I love having my kids over there because they're doing a better job than I am. But family time, which happened after second service, we had over 70 people at that event. 11 families were there celebrating, just learning about their kids and their week, and just an amazing time. So if you are a family and you didn't go, or if you know a family who didn't go, by all means invite them. Make sure that they show up to that, because it was just it was a really cool time for even me to get to know my kids and their week in the context of God and how he was interacting with them. Things that maybe as a pastor I should probably ask more about, but I didn't. And so that gave me an opportunity to do that. So yay for growth and spiritualness. Go me. Also, something else we celebrated last week, baptisms. We had 8 people get baptized last week. It was an amazing event. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Half of them were youth. Half of them were kids. Half of them were younger than, well, me. But it was amazing, right? So that was such an incredible event, and we're going to be hosting baptisms every 2 to 3 months, just as a regular rhythm. So if you didn't get baptized, but you've been feeling that spiritual tug on your heart, that you are following Jesus, but you're like, man, I got to take that next step in obedience, that next step in declaring who it is that I'm for and who is for me in this world, baptism is for you. So head to branches.tv/baptism, get signed up. You're not obligated to, but we will let you ask questions. We'll answer your questions. We'll get you prepped for that if you're interested. So definitely sign up for that. Now, speaking of celebrations and joy, there's just tons of joy just going on in the world. So yesterday we celebrated my son's 9th birthday. Yeah, he's 9. That's awesome. I'm a dad. I know his birthday, I promise. And so we went to this place called Defy. And so there they have these neat slides. And this is me experiencing unrepentant joy, right? I mean, that's like, yeah, I wound up, anyway. So, right, if we're doing something in life, isn't it so freeing when we just find that joy, when we find the thing where we're so often just like, oh man, this is amazing, this is incredible, and I just can't wait for the very next thing. The problem is, it's all too often we get in our own way, and the very next thing that happens is we wind up on our face. Just flat on our face, right? And so too often we wind up getting in our own way. And so today we're going to learn about how to get out of our way and let God move in our lives. But first, let's check this out.
Good morning. Good morning. It's me again. It's me again. Hey, yeah, it's a good day. You know, I had this crazy dream last night. I woke up I don't dream a lot, but I woke up in the middle of the night. Sometimes my dreams have meanings. Anybody else out there maybe feel like your dreams have meanings? Have any of you guys have dreams that have literally just come true, completely? So I had a dream last night. I was over at Dustin's house, and Josh was there, and Josh was sick. Brianna's like, Josh is sick. And I'm like, okay. That's great. I woke up, missed call from Josh, 6 a.m. Hey, dude, I'm sick. I can't sing. I have a fever. I cannot be there. And so I'm like, well, shoot. Looks like our options are a little bit limited. Anyway, that's why I was leading worship this morning, not to say, anyway, it was great. I'm like, I can sing a couple songs. Let's do it. Plus, I knew this message was going to be a little longer, so I can cut a song out even better and give myself more time. Perks of a pastor, perks of a pastor, so I'm taking advantage of it. But yeah, let's throw a prayer for Josh. In fact, I'm going to pray for him right now and pray for this day. God, thank you so much for this day. God, would you be with Josh as he just recovers? Would you help him to feel better soon? God, would you break that fever and heal his body in your precious and holy name? Amen. All right, it's a good day to be at Branches. The sun is out and you guys are here, so thank you for coming. We're in this eternal summer, which is great unless you have church on Sunday, in which case, you're I got to make a decision, and you guys made the right one today, so good on you. Good on you. You made the right choice. You passed the test. Way to go. But my name's Timmy. I'm the lead pastor here at Branches, and I just stepped into this role just over a month ago. And I wanted to go back to school for my first series. So we planned this series, Back to School, which really, I hated school. I was a horrible student, but I do, looking back on school, recognize that it was necessary for my life, for my growth. May have not liked it at the time, but it's good for us long term. And that's what I want to do with us as a church, to take us on a journey with messages that are more directed towards where we're going as a church and how we get there. Because I think it's necessary. It's maybe a little bit of a different series than what we're going to normally do here at Branches, but it's necessary and it's about growth. So buckle up. We're going into it today. Before I stepped into ministry back in 2017 as a youth pastor, I did real estate, and one of my favorite things to do was to flip houses, because I got to see something that was completely broken down and destroyed and ugly and make something pretty out of it. I'm not much of an artist, but that was kind of my artistic outlet. But the thing I recognized is that it took all of me. When I was in it, I was in it. And I told you, sometimes I dream things that are prophetic, or maybe not, maybe they are, I don't know. This was not helpful prophetic. Even I don't want to dog on my dream, but that dream wasn't very helpful, because I woke up with the same answer. I was like, well, if I had that dream a week ago, that would have been a great dream for today, because then I would have known a week before that Josh wouldn't be leading worship, and we could have made other plans. But anyway, before I would work on a house, I would have a dream of what I was going to do the next day, because it would be so in my mind. I'm painting. So all throughout my dream, all night, I'm painting, and I wake up in the morning, I'm tired already from painting, and then I got to go paint for real. So it was kind of a drag, but I recognized when I became a youth pastor, I'm I want to be able to put my heart and soul into this, and it's not conducive for me to continue on flipping houses and, being a pastor at the same time. So I swore it off. And it's always when you swear it off that, you're going to come out of retirement at some point. So this is kind of my story. So a year into me being a youth pastor, I get an email or a text from one of my business partners and good friend, and they're like, hey, check out this house. And I was like, yeah, but no, I'm not really interested in the house. But I clicked on the link, and I'm like, it's close into town. It's good. It's a total mess, which is right up my alley. Maybe I should do it. Maybe I should. And so the next morning, despite my better judgment, I called the title company, got a title report in the queue. Thanks, Mike. You're awesome. That wasn't going to end well. Got a title report in the queue, and the sale was happening the next day. And the one thing that was different about this house than any other house that I'd done before, because I was pretty well versed in this landscape going into it. So I'm I know what I'm doing. I got this. This house was an auction, though. I'd never bought a house in an auction. I'd never bought anything at an auction, to be honest with you. I like the auctioneers and their voices and how fast they can talk. I respect that mad game, but I had never won anything at an auction before, let alone a house. But in my bullheadedness, I jumped in. I'm like, I got this. I can do this. Well, how hard can it be? You know? So, title report didn't come in the next morning, but I went to the auction anyway. I showed up. I had a bunch of money on me, which was scary in and of itself. It was at the sheriff's office in St. Helens. And I walk in there, and there's like people, doing their parole thing. There's people in handcuffs. And I'm like, this is an odd place to buy a house, And I'm like, where's that house buying happening in here? So I find where that's going on, and it's kind of a unique setup, and I'm like, I don't really know. It's real sterile. I'm not really sure how I feel about it, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm still in there like, no, I got this. I'm good. It's like when you're at the store and you're completely lost, and someone says, hey, can I help you find anything? And you're like, no. But you have no idea where it is. Come on, let's just be honest. Like, it was one of those moments. I'm like, I got this. So as soon as I get in there, I see this guy that I knew from high school. He had helped out in my youth group, actually, when I was in high school. And after high school, I'd run into him just a couple times. I knew he did real estate, and I would run into him doing real estate things every once in a while, probably 3 times in my 20s up until this point. And every time, the conversation didn't go well. He was nice, he was cordial, but he was really condescending, I felt like, or maybe it was my own pride just welling up inside of me. But he came up and approached me. He's like, oh, Timmy, I didn't know you were buying houses at auction. I'm like, well, I haven't before. And he's like, oh, well, if you need any help, let me know. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I got this, And he's like an expert about it. And I knew this because every time I ran into him, dude would be like, hey, how you doing? How many houses did you do this year? And the answer was like 1 or 2. He'd be like, oh, that's great. I did 73 with my crew. I'm like, good for you, man. And it always just rubbed me the wrong way, you could imagine. But so when he approached me, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to hear it from you, man. So I'm already just guarded and stupid. And he's like, Timmy, which house are you bidding on today? And I told him, and he's like, oh, yeah, have you been in that house? And I'm like, yeah, I broke into it because it's a total, drug house and a total messed up, there was no door on it. Anyway, it was a total mess, and I had kind of broken in there and looked around because you couldn't do an inspection or anything like that. And so he's like, yeah, I've been in there, and it was pretty rough. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And he's like, did you do all your due diligence on this house? And the answer in my mind, because the title report hadn't come in yet, was no, but the answer that came out of my mouth sounded a whole lot more like yes. Leave me alone, stop talking to me. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, leaves me to myself. And the auction starts, and it's just me against another group of guys. And it was just, they were all together, and so we were bidding against each other. I only had so much money in my jacket, and we go up, bid, and we're bidding back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and we get to where I'm almost out of money. And I'm already spending more than I wanted to spend on this house. And we get there, and $500 before I ran out of money, they back out. And I was like, yes, best feeling in the world. I got this. I won. Yes. And you can probably already tell where the story's going. Feeling pretty good about myself. I leave. I get a call 5 minutes into my drive. It's this real estate company saying, hey, we own the rights to your property. We can redeem it at any point in the next 6 months unless you pay us $10,000. I'm like, that sounds like extortion. You can't do that. They're like, yes, we can. So I call the guy that had met me and asked me if I'd done my due diligence. On the way home, I'm like, hey, man, this real estate company is trying to shake me down. What's this about? And he's like, oh, dude, if you Google shady real estate practices in Oregon, this will pop up. You can do it for yourself after this. It'll pop up. And it's this company, they do this. They buy the deeds to these houses right before they go up for auction, and so they have a right to redeem your house within 6 months, and they just try to shake you down, and they threaten you to basically sit on your house for 6 months or pay them because they could buy it back at any point. But he's like, Timmy, they're not going to buy your house back. I'm like, well, I know I overpaid for it, but I didn't overpay for it by that much. And he's like, you do know, right? And I'm like, no, what? And he's like, you told me you did your due diligence. I was trying to tell you this when we were there, but you said, no, I got this. And I'm like, so what's the deal? And he's like, Timmy, this has an $80,000 tax lien on this house that you have to pay. And just to put in perspective, it almost doubled the amount of the house that I had to pay for the house. And I had no idea. And my heart just sank. I was like, oh no, I messed up, big time. And it's costing me, and not only me, but a friend, a lot of money. But what is it in us, right? Because we all have this. I mean, maybe your I got this moments didn't cost you this much money, but I would be willing to bet some of you guys may have lost more. Some of your I got this moments may have costed you financially more or relationally much more than even that. Some of you guys, may have an issue with it at lower levels, but it's all this mentality, this I got this mentality. What is that? It's whatever comes before a fall. It's pride. Right? It's us saying, hey, my way is the highway and nobody else better have an opinion on it because I'm doing this. I got this. And we do this so often with things that we don't got this on, right? I mean, you've seen this. You do it with DIY projects. I know I rag on DIY projects a lot, but some of you guys have those in your history that you don't want to show anybody because they're that bad. Because you saw something on Pinterest and you're like, I can do that, but you didn't watch the directions on how to do it. You just went for it. But what is it in us that just wants to try it without actually looking or asking for directions? And we do it with relationships too. A lot of young people, maybe some not so young people do this as well. But when we jump into a relationship and everybody around us is like, hey, pump the brakes, let's chill out, and especially young people, they've never been in a relationship before. This is their first one. They're like, how hard can it be? And they jump in with both feet. Mom's trying to tell them, dad's trying to tell them, uncle, aunt, people in their lives are trying to be like, hey, you should chill out a little bit on that. And they're like, I got this. It's like, what in you thinks that you got this? You've never done it before. You can't possibly have got this. You know what I'm saying? We do this with parenting too. I know parents. I'm a parent. I got a couple kids. We do this with other parents. Like, no parents like being told how to parent. I've noticed that's like the biggest point of pride ever. Like, you dare suggest how someone should parent. I mean, it happens to me too. People have said things to me, and my first inkling is like, don't you dare touch that. But we jump into parenting and we're like, I got this. But you've never done it before. No, you don't. Have some humility. Listen to your parents. Listen to other people in your life. There's 1.5 million books that you can read on parenting. What in us would think that we can just figure it out or that we should figure it out? There's other people who've gone before us. There's a better way. And we do it with more and more like things that have big implications. Parenting has huge implications, but we do it with mental illness. We start having the anxiety, the depression. We slip into that dark spot in life. God forbid we have the pain of loss of someone close to us. And so often our first thing is like, I got this. I'm going to figure this out on my own. I can do this. I don't need any help from anybody. I'm going to figure this out on my own. And you've heard it before, especially when it comes to like suicide. Like, you're not alone. And that's true, but these things should tip us off to that our mindset and really these things, as they get less and less important when there are DIY projects and stuff like that, that pride mentality, that pride response should tip us off that we have a bigger problem. Because it goes deep, and it can go very, very deep. And if it's an issue there, it's going to be an issue with the deeper things. And we need to deal with this because it's a big deal. So pride is a problem, symptom of a much bigger issue that we need to deal with. And there was this guy named Peter in the Bible, good friend of Jesus. How many of you guys know my boy Pete? He's a good dude, had a fair share of issues, though. Early on, he was like the most overly excitable guy, one of Jesus' followers. He was always first to jump into the water, jump and say and do things maybe that he shouldn't, even hack the dude's ear off the night that Jesus was captured just on a whim. He just did it, and Jesus is like, what are you doing? He fixes it, thankfully. But he had this moment, too, where Jesus is like, hey, the Son of Man must be betrayed, and he's going to be captured, and he's going to be killed. And Peter's like, and Jesus is like laying down God's redemption plan for all of humanity. He's saying this is the way. It wasn't like a plan that he was bringing his disciples in, like, what do you think we should do here? No, this is something they've had on their hearts forever, like God and Jesus. Like, they got this figured out. And Peter steps in and he's like, Jesus, don't let that happen. Dude, say it ain't so. Jesus, you can't let that happen. Jesus is like, this isn't a discussion. I'm telling you how this is going to be. I'm the Son of God. You're Peter. You're a great guy, but like, there's no comparison. What are you doing? And he says, get behind me, Satan. And then again, the night Jesus would be betrayed, Jesus is like, I have to go away and you guys can't come with me. Peter's like, I will never leave you, Lord. I will never leave your side. Even if everybody else falls away, I will never leave you. He's like, Peter, tonight, tomorrow morning, before the rooster even crows, you're going to deny even knowing me 3 times. And he does it.
And then Peter's in this low point where his life, as he knows it, is done. His friend just died. He's like, I don't know what to do. I have nothing left. 3 days later, gets a knock at the door. Some ladies show up. They're like, hey, the tomb's empty. Jesus is alive. He just did the impossible. Peter witnessed a risen Jesus. And then at that moment, something flipped in Peter that changed everything. And Peter, who struggled with pride throughout his life, suddenly had the opposite of pride, this humility where he's like, I can't do it. I don't know what I'm doing, and I have to submit to Jesus on this. And later on in his life, he would actually write about this pride, this I got this mindset that we so often carry. And pride's a big deal. If you go back all the way to the Garden of Eden, C.S. Lewis actually refers to pride. He doesn't do it in the Garden of Eden, but he refers to pride as the great sin. And this is so interesting. He said it's the great sin because out of it are bred all of the other sins, come out of pride. It's this I got this mentality. It's that my ways are higher than your ways, God. And all of their sins are bred out of it. He said pride is the complete anti-God state of mind. And Peter talks about this pride issue in 1 Peter 5. He says this. Again, anybody who would be well-versed in pride, that would have the authority to speak on the subject, it's Peter. He says, in the same way, you who are younger must accept the authority of the elders. And he says, and everybody included, all of you, that's everyone, all of you, dress yourselves in humility. And this is such a beautiful picture. Dress yourselves or clothe yourselves, cover yourselves in humility. Don't let it just be a part of your life. Let it be your whole life. You should be covered in humility as you relate to one another. That's a big deal. I think as a church, as people, our lives would be infinitely better if we just took that dress yourselves in humility truth and applied it to our lives. In so many ways, it's so powerful as you relate to one another. For God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. He gives favor to the humble, another version says. This is important. This is huge. This is monumental for our lives. This word oppose that he uses is actually a military term, which means to come up against. And the idea here that should scare the daylights out of us is that when we are full of pride, the creator of the universe opposes you. He puts himself up against you militarily. Who's going to win? Not you. Right? And that's scary. God opposes the proud. But on the flip side of that, he gives his goodness, his unmerited favor, and his grace to us when we are humble. And there's this beautiful picture of this that occurs in the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 17. Even if you're not a Jesus person, you've heard this story before. It's David and Goliath. You guys know the story, right? But we're going to dive into the story a little bit here just to set the scene in 1 Samuel 17. David had just been anointed king, but there's another king named Saul. Because of Saul's own pride, God's like, I'm going to take the kingdom away from you. I'm going to give it to this guy, David, who will be a man after my own heart. He anoints David as king. Nobody really knows it or respects the anointing quite yet. And so the scene is this. The Israelite army is posed up against the Philistine army, and there are opposite hillsides with a valley in between. And there's this dude named Goliath on the bad guy's side, the Philistine side. And Goliath's taunting Israel day in and day out, saying, hey, send me your champion, we'll fight, we'll duke it out, whoever wins, we'll take the other person's army, and day in and day out, Israel has no solution for it. They're terrified. But they're still sitting there like, at some point, something's going to crack. At some point, our way is going to win out, and we're going to beat this giant. David wasn't even invited to the battle. David was just this little scrawny shepherd who was taking care of the sheep. He wasn't even invited to go out and fight. Finally, his dad's like, hey, David, go greet your brothers, bring them some food, talk to him a little bit. So he shows up to the battlefield. And this is why this is so important. We talked about community a couple weeks ago, because we all have blind spots, right? And pride causes us to have tunnel vision where we don't want to listen to any other voice. We're like, I got this. Come hell or high water, I got this. I don't need anybody's help. And that's what Israel was doing in this picture. David shows up and he looks at the scene. He's like, you guys don't got this. It's not even close. You guys will never win this way. You'll never get what you're after doing what you're doing day in and day out. And they look at David and they're like, David, what are you going to do about it? It's like, you're just a shepherd. You weren't even invited to the battle. And he's like, I can't do anything about it. But I know someone that can. He's like, my own strength, it's impossible. You see the guy. I can't do anything, but God can, and he's willing. If you have a little humility. And he looks at the situation, and he addresses the crowds there, and he says this in 1 Samuel 17, verse 47. He says, and everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescues his people. And this is right before he goes and grabs the sling and the stone, and he takes down Goliath. We know the story, right? He's like, through this action, everyone will know that the Lord rescues his people. But he doesn't do it with a sword and spear. He's not calling you to operate on your own strength and your own mindset and the way that you think it should be done. Because then we give ourselves the credit and not him the glory where it belongs. He said, this is the Lord's battle. This is vital for us to understand. This is the Lord's battle, and he alone, he will give you to us. And we need to adopt that same mindset, right? That this is the Lord's battle, that we don't got this, that our own ways, our own pride will never get us to where we want to be. We need to be relying on him. The reality is that we carry things that we weren't meant to carry. We are constantly holding on to things and saying, hey, I got this, I can handle this myself. Yeah, maybe it's just our DIY project. You know, it's like a little just a 2-pound weight. You know, it's a little thing that we throw in our backpack and tote around. You know, it's our relationships. That's a little bit bigger. That's an 8-pound weight. It's our mental illness. It's the stuff that we're dealing with, that we're bound and determined to beat. We throw the depression, the anxiety, and we carry it around. We carry the pain of the loss of someone close to it. We put it in our backpack. And this thing's like 60 pounds at this point. It's heavy. We carry it around. And it's a lot. It weighs us down. It keeps us from God's best for our lives. We still, when we refuse to say this is the Lord's battle and we hold on to it, that's what we're doing. We're carrying around things that we weren't ever meant to carry. But this is the Lord's battle. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a good news. We don't have to be reliant on our own strength, because in and of ourselves, we could never do it. And that's the beauty of the gospel. We could never save ourselves, but he can. And it's vital that we understand this. So Peter lays out the solution for us. In 1 Peter 5:6, he says this. He says, so humble yourselves. Humble yourselves under the mighty power of God. And this is vital that we understand this as well. What you're humbling yourselves to is not just general humility, not just being kind of humble and thinking low of yourselves. You're humbling yourselves under the mighty power of God, the creator of the universe, the one that defeated death. That is what we are submitting to. That's what we are surrendering to. That's where our humility comes over. And he says at the right time, he will lift you up in honor. And this is tough for us because we don't like the right time. We don't like the right time. Americans especially. Dang Americans, I'll tell you what. No, we struggle with the right time. You know, we flip the hot water on. It's not there in like 5 seconds. You're like, oh, are you kidding me? Is the hot water heater broken? Like, what's happening? I mean, some of you can attest if you've lived without running water before, like that would be a crazy thought to someone 100 years ago, or someone who's dealt with not having running water before. But now it's just like, right time, better be my time. If it's not right now, I mean, come on, 20 years ago, you're like loading a web page. You're good with it taking 45 seconds to a minute. Now, is my phone broken? Like, you're hitting refresh constantly if it's not loading right away. Is my phone broken? You know, we're the same people that we burn our mouth on Hot Pockets, which is crazy. Hold on. That is crazy. You tell someone 100 years ago you could have a meal in a minute and a half if you just wait like 3 or 4 minutes to let it cool. Just like that, you could just have a hot meal. They would have been like, that's magic. That's crazy. You can't do that. And today, we're like, oh, I really have to, I'm the king. I've burned my mouth on too many things. I like eating fast, and I don't like waiting. So I'm right there with y'all. I'm not just trying to throw you under the bus. But we don't like the right time. We like our time. And I can't guarantee you when your breakthrough will come, when you submit, when you surrender, when you humble yourself before God, but I know he's going to be true to his promise, and that at the right time, he will lift you up in honor, that he is worth surrendering, that he is worth submitting to, giving our lives to. He's worth following. So, go on to the next verse, and it's one of the most impactful verses in the entire Bible. And if we could just have this and live by this, it would change everything. Peter says, in light of all this, in light of everything I just told you, in light of this whole idea with pride and humility, you can recognize this truth. He says, give all your worries. Give all your worries and all your cares. Another version says, give all your anxiety to God. Why? Because he cares about you. And that's huge. It's life changing. And the reality is, and where you see care is kind of plugged into this, is that when we have pride, when we're saying, I got this, and I don't need anybody's help, what we're saying is that we want to be in control. And if you really start, I don't care if you're a Jesus person or not in this, if you start looking at the idea of control, thinking that you're in it, I mean, if COVID showed us nothing else, all the things that we thought with things being open and life as we know it kind of shifted, and we're like, wait, we're not really in control of as many things as we thought we were, right? And I know that's probably frustrating still to a lot of people. The reality is that we're hurling around the sun at how many tens of thousands of miles an hour? Someone could probably tell me that exact stat. It's like I feel like they teach that in third grade. It's kind of a fun stat. It's probably like 56,000 miles an hour, right? So the idea that we're doing this, like, you're not in control. You're not in control of that, certainly. You're not in control of much smaller things than that, too. The reality is control is kind of a fallacy. It's not even a real thing. But when we live in the space where we have to be in control, and we can control a lot as Americans, but we're not really in control of very many things at all. And when we come to that realization, the house of cards kind of falls down, and we're left with the what ifs. And maybe that could happen, and all this, and it causes anxiety, it causes worry, it causes cares. And Peter's like, look, if you give all your cares and worry to God, he wants to take them from you, and he cares about you, and he's willing and he's able to take it from you. Now look, I'm not just telling you how to live your life. I consider myself as kind of an expert on worry and anxiety. Not something that's good to be an expert on, but it's my lot. So I've always been kind of an anxious person. I struggled like flying when I was younger, scared the daylight out of me. But it was just kind of like low grade, wasn't anything to be really too concerned about. And I found myself, I was probably 27, 28 years old. I had just hit this pinnacle of like success in my life that I thought I would never reach in my life ever. Like, I never dreamed that I would be there. I lived in the house that I wanted. I drove the car that I wanted. I had the job that I wanted. I was, by all means, killing it. And I'm like sitting there like, I got this. Like, this is good. And at that time, I started getting, my wife and I got to a point where I was like, I think maybe we don't need to have kids. Like, we could just not have kids, and we could just continue on our lifestyle and not even worry about it, and it'll be good. But we talked about it, and we're like, no, I think we need to have kids. So we start trying to have kids, and to my shock and awe, it happened way faster than I thought it would. Scared the daylight out of me. I'm like, I'm gonna be a dad. So much of my life is gonna have to change, and I'm not ready for it to change yet. I was freaked out of my mind. And then as the weeks went on, I started warming up to the idea. I'm like, I can be a dad. It doesn't have to change everything. A kid would be great. Like, this will be okay. So I start warming up to the idea. And then when we warm up to a celebratory state with anything, what do we want to do? We want to tell somebody, right? We want to tell somebody. We want to be like, hey, celebrate with me. Would you join with me? And so I told my parents, I'm like, Mom, guess what? I want to meet with you guys. I got some news for you. And so I tell my parents, you guys are going to be first-time grandparents. They're celebrating. People are crying. We're hugging together. And so excited. We go home that night. My wife started having pain in her abdomen, bleeding, and we lost the baby that night. And it hurt like crazy. It hurt her both physically, mentally, emotionally. Over the next couple of weeks, she dealt with it a lot better than I did. For me, I was in control of my life and everything going on around me. And I prided myself in that. And this just wrecked my house of cards. Like what I had built it on, I wasn't in control of that. I can't control that thing. That's well beyond me. And then as that began to break down mentally, I just broke. Over the next couple of weeks, I started just spiraling, and it was around Christmas time. We had some friends over, and I just had this panic attack. My heart started racing. I thought I was going to die. Told my wife, who's a nurse practitioner, I'm like, I'm literally dying right now. She's like, you're literally not at all. You're fine. Just stop freaking out. And you tell an anxious person to stop freaking out, it doesn't help. And but I was like, I was bound and determined to beat this thing, because the next day I felt the same, and I'm like, what do I do with this? And so I saw a doctor, I saw a therapist, I started like reading the Bible more. I was going to church, I wasn't really even following Jesus at the time. I made a worship playlist to go to sleep by. I was a total mess. This went on for like 2-3 months. I'd seen my therapist, finally, my counselor, for like the 8th time. And she's like, Timmy, have you given this to God? And I said yes really quick. And she's like, no, I mean, have you really given this to God? And the answer was no, but I didn't know what that even looked like. So I started driving home. I was listening to this worship song. I was on Cornelius Pass. I pulled over at Germantown because I was listening to this worship song. And it was just going on like, even when it hurts, I'll praise you. And I just started praising God. I'm like, God, you got to take this from me. God, this is too much for me to handle. I can't do this on my own. You have to take this from me. If you don't, I'm done. I can't live like this anymore. God, if you're good, if you're real, please, you have to take this from me. Please take this from me. I'm done. I don't got this. And in that moment, like 50% of it lifted off my shoulders. Like right then and there, it was like that. And it was noticeable, it was powerful, and I'm like, that's incredible. And over the next couple of weeks, as I pursued God in this, and I said, God, your will above mine. God, would you have your best for my life? Would you lead me, Lord, day in and day out? The rest of it began to lift. And he healed me. It was through the surrender, through the submission, saying, God, your ways above mine, daily, that he healed me. We all carry the stuff that we've picked up along the way. And Peter would be like, would you just lay it down? Would you just give your cares, your worries, your anxiety, your pain of loss, your shame, your abuse, would you just give it to God? And if you were to ask Peter maybe some pushback, well, Peter, how do I know that God cares about me? And he'd be like, I saw him. He died for me. He died for you. He gave up everything to restore relationship with you, with God, the Creator. Of course he cares about you. Well, Peter, how do we know that he can actually do something with my pain? I've been through some dark stuff, and I know we could go around this room and tell stories, and they would be 10 times worse than mine. But he's able, because of the grave, right? He defeated death. If he can do that, he can do something with your pain, with your loss, with your abuse, with your shame, with your past, and walk you into a better future. It's got to be a daily thing, though, right? This isn't a one and done. This is a daily, like, giving up of ourselves to God. It's saying, God, your ways above mine. God, I don't got this. I need your help in this situation. I need your help to live the life that you've led me into. I can't do it on my own. And that realization is like, you were never meant to do it on your own strength. It was meant to be us, or him through us. And that's what gives him the glory. And I have to think, That a church, a group of people who were surrendered to the same truth. That a church who would sit there and say, hey, God, your way, day in and day out, your way above my own. A church surrendered will move mountains in our community. And we want that, right? I had this word, I was praying before I was a pastor. This was like early last spring. And I'm like, God, what do you want for this town? What do you want for this community? And I just heard this. A church surrendered will move mountains in our community. He wants to do the impossible through us, and we get the opportunity to partner with him in that. But it's not on our own strength. It's not just coming up and playing guitar and playing drums and doing stuff like that. It's people. It's a group of people who are surrendered to the will of God, saying, God, your way in my life, not my way. Would we be submitted and surrendered to your best for our lives because it's a better way to live? And together, you guys, we got the changes we want to see. Everybody's got an issue with the school district or the issue with the way things work in our town or our nation or our world, and we just feel powerless to do anything. That's because we are. You weren't meant to do it on your own strength, but through the power of Christ, humbling yourselves under his power, he can do the impossible through us if we're surrendered to him. We can't, but he can. Now, practically, what does this even look like? Well, like I said, surrender is a daily thing, and there's this great app that you can find. It's called the Pause app. John Eldredge is a great Christian writer. He wrote this book called Wild at Heart, and he has this idea of just daily surrender in that. And the Pause app, it's a free app that you can get on your app store, and you can listen to these prayers. He's got a bunch of them, and they're really soothing. They're really great when you're stressed or when you're trying to fall asleep or we're waking up and trying to give God your day. But he has this one prayer that's super simple that I wonder if we could just adopt as a group of people. And the prayer is simply this: Jesus, I give everyone and everything to you. I give everyone and everything to you, God. Jesus, I give everyone and everything to you. I give everyone and everything to you, God. And you just say that repeatedly. And it's not a matter of ritual or anything like that. It's really just convincing yourself that his way is better and getting your pride out of the way so he can show up and work. So I wonder as a group if we could adopt that as a church and watch God move in only the ways that he can move. We're going to sing this last song, and this is a great opportunity to surrender, to submit, and just say, God, your will above mine. So wherever you're at, sitting, standing, hands up, on your knees, wherever it's at, we just surrender our lives and our best to the will of God and watch what he does through us. God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for your goodness, your grace, your love for us. God, we just submit and declare that your ways are higher than our own. God, we just ask that you show up and do what only you can do in our lives. God, we need you, we love you, we praise you. In your name, amen.
Sing it out. Here I am. Here I am, down on my knees again, surrendering all, surrendering all. Find me here, Lord, as you draw me near, desperate for you, desperate for you. I surrender. hunger and thirst. I hunger and thirst. Arms stretched wide, I know you hear my cry. Speak to me now. Speak to me. I surrender. I surrender. I wanna know you more. I wanna know you more. I surrender. I surrender. I wanna know you more. I wanna know you more. Like a rushing wind, Jesus, breathe within. Lord, have your way. Lord, have your way in me. Like a mighty storm, stir within my soul. Lord, have your way. Lord, have your way in me. Like a rushing wind, Jesus, breathe within. Lord, have your way. Lord, have your way in me. Like a mighty storm, stir within my soul. Lord, have your way. Lord, have your way in me. I surrender. I surrender. I wanna know you. I wanna know you more. I surrender. I surrender. I wanna know you more. I wanna know you. Lord, we thank you for your goodness in our lives, God. I ask that you lead this church into your best for this community, God, that we be a blessing to the world around us, God, not on our own strength, but on your strength through us, God. Help us to be a body of people surrendered to your will. God bless you, Branches. Have a great week. Be a blessing.